Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Akash Weekly Twitter Spaces. I'm Nadia Bajuelo, Community Events Manager here at Overclock Labs. I hope everyone here now and listening or watching this later is having a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever it is that you guys are joining us from. Let's get started with today's spaces. Greg will kick us off with updates, starting with the fact that Akash is attending Masari Mainnet literally right now. After updates, we'll give you guys a full introduction to our guests, Prashant, co-founder and CEO at Spheron, and Cheng, CFO at Overclock Labs. During our guest segment, we'll be asking Prashant about Spheron, their roadmap, their partnership with Akash, and how they've grown such a robust ecosystem. Then Cheng will tell us all about the latest Akash token release. We'll then wrap up with an AMA with Greg and our guests. We'll meet Prashant and Cheng just after updates, but for right now, let's hand it off to the man of the hour and CEO of Overclock Labs, Greg Osuri. Take it away, Greg.
Thanks so much, Nadia. Great to be here. I mean, great to do this every week without fail at 8 a.m. Wednesday. Most of us in the team are actually traveling this week, so we're all in. I'm calling from New York, along with a good, sizable Akash Network team here. And if you're in New York, don't forget my talk tomorrow at I believe it's four or I think at 3:30 on the main stage at Mainnet, as well as our head of product Anil will be speaking as well. Anil will show you something super amazing. We've been working on this platform. I can't tell what it is right now. We're going to announce it tomorrow. So if you're around, please make sure to go check it out. And if you're in New York, please hit me up. We may or may not have a happy hour that we are hosting. So if you're in New York, let me know. DM me, and I'll tell you more about this potential happy hour. So this week we've been actually heads down and making sure we have everything ready to go for Mainnet 4. Mainnet 4 is coming in a few weeks. It's fully complete. The big feature that's coming out is the IP leases, of course. IP address, now you can essentially have a unique IP for your deployments that you were not able to before on Akash. With unique IP, that means you can support unique ports. And so that'll enable heavy duty applications like Solana full nodes or Ethereum full nodes to have their, even Bitcoin full node, as a matter of fact, to have fixed ports, right? So that's coming out in a few weeks. It's currently in testnet. If you want to go play around with it, you can go directly hit the testnet, or you can use one of the tools. Akash supports IP addresses. Go check it out. So we're super excited for this feature. It's a big update, and this should be the last big update before the GPU. So we're going to be actively working on GPUs after the IP addresses are released. So it's really exciting. Talk on GPUs heating up. You can hear. Please follow Anil at Climb Ride Runner. I believe his handle is, and Climb Ride Runner. So check out. He's got a lot of updates on GPUs. He's really excited to ship the GPUs. For those of you that don't know who Anil is he's our head of product, and his background before Akash, he was leading project management at HashiCorp for Terraform. So Terraform is a tool that's used maybe by 80% of the cloud today for cloud orchestration, and we're really lucky to have someone like that come lead product at Akash. So go check out Clyde Ride Runner. Go follow him. He's going to give you a lot of updates on the upcoming Mainnet 4, as well as the GPU support. We're working hard to getting you hopefully by the end of the year. And if you're in New York, please make sure to attend this talk. I think the talk will be live streamed as well. So if you're not able to, you can get there. Um, and with that, so you know, we all know this week is going to be a little bumpy week, and a lot of us are traveling, but the bumpiness is going to come through token unlock. So that's no surprise, and we're all prepared for it. And so just just to give you a little more, we have Cheng here. And next week, a lot of us are going to be at Cosmoverse in Medellin, in Colombia. So if you're around, come check it out. I mean, our CTO is going to give you a workshop. He's going to talk to you quite a lot about the upcoming, uh, GPUs and whatnot. So if you're around in Colombia, please make sure to attend this talk. So with that, I'll hand it off to Nadia.
Thanks, Greg. And yes, well, a few of us will be over at Cosmoverse in Medellin. Excited to see you guys. And those of you that are insiders and are on the call, super excited to meet you guys in person. Definitely come check out Akash and come check out Adam Bosnich's workshop. All right. So let's meet our guests. First up today, we have Prashant Maurya, co founder and CEO at Spheron. Before founding Spheron, Prashant worked in various domains, including healthcare, ERP, and HRMS. He was a solutions architect and led large teams across his career spanning 8 years. He has been actively building in the Web3 space for the past 3 years. Prashant firmly believes that for Web3 to succeed, we need to build a robust and scalable Web3 infrastructure. With this vision, he founded Spheron, which ensures Web3 infrastructure is easily accessible for all users to leverage its true potential. Welcome, Prashant. How are you today?
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you, Akash team, for having me here. I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome to hear. So, to kick it right off, Prashant, can you tell us a little bit about Spheron? What do you guys do and why do you do it?
Sure. So I'll not. I'll so there. It has two explanations. The one is which is longer. One is which is shorter. I'll take the shorter route. For longer, we can have another chat one someday. So for the shorter, you have already told that in my introduction, right? So for us, when we started building into this space, the one thing which we quickly hit the bump was around decentralized infrastructure. The reason being because in 2019-20, everyone was building DeFi applications, everyone was building DEXs, AMM, and whatnot, and it was like quite a hectic place that point of time. And most of them were calling themselves as a decentralized application. And if you see DEX, right, and D is basically decentralized exchange. In reality, the decentralized exchange is mostly focused on the smart contract. But in practicality, if you go and see, most of these decentralized exchange are being used by retail users or the users who don't know how to interact with the smart contracts and directly via your machine. So, which means they all need a GUI or graphical user interface or user interface using which they are going to interact with. But all this user interface was centralized. So, in reality, we were not building the decentralized ecosystem. We were building the centralized ecosystem, which been controlled by the folks who really own it. And there are a lot of incidents happened also during that point of time when people started taking down some of the dexes depending on different jurisdiction if they have lost those decks. And what happened eventually was like a lot of people have lost the faith in DeFi, lost the money also during that phase itself. So a lot of things happened, and that really given us a bump in terms of like how we can what as since I come from a solution architect background, for me, one thing which hit me hard is like how we can we being a developer, how we can add a value into this ecosystem by making sure people have a right tool and sets, not only retail but also to the developers who are like not going and accessing decentralized infrastructure. They should have a right tool so that they should not have an option tomorrow by saying like we did not have the right tool to launch our application on IPFS, Filecoin, or on Akash or on wherever they wish to, right? So that was our philosophical thing to start building at Spheron is to build something which really brings the decentralized ecosystem nearer to them, and using which uh, a developer, a company, or even a retail, we have made it that simple. Like anyone can fork an open source repo and launch it. So they can go and launch their own user interface or nodes after the integration of Akash. It is going to be nodes and validators as well. But earlier it was more on front end deployment. So that was our intention. And now going forward, we want to make it a full stack kind of a deployment experience for the users. where they should not just own the front end, they should also be start owning the back end as well. And that is where Akash integration is going to play a very vital role for us.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Prashant. Can you take a moment and walk us through your roadmap? Let us know where you are on that roadmap today, what you're working on right now.
So there are a lot of plans actually. By November and December, you will see that the first roadmap which is coming up is the marketplace, which is going to be dedicated marketplace on the Spheron network, where let's say if because we have been talking to a couple of more projects in India who are building the chains, and we are also in talk with a couple of more people who are running the various nodes and validators. We understood one thing is like they all want to move out from centralized ecosystem. They want to move to decentralized, but there is no way they can do it easy in a very easy way. So we realized quickly, and then we said like, since we are already in the part of the Akash integration, why can't we just go and launch our own marketplace, which basically manages your entire node end to end. So, for example, let's say if you are launching your validator, so launching a validator is not everything, right? In practicality, in theory, you can just go and launch a validator and be happy by launching on any chain. But after launching it, you have to manage it, and that management becomes a much more pain than it is today, right? So that is where we wanted to come up with a marketplace which basically allows you to go and launch these nodes on Akash, and then on top of that, they can also enable monitoring system on these nodes or server, whatever they are running. So, for example, if my node goes down, I should be notified somehow. I should be notified on different channels. If something happens to it, I should be like immediately being notified. And then, let's say if I want to run a load balancer, if I want to run a Node.js application, like it is quite difficult to do it today. But with the new integration which we are currently working on, it will open a totally different set of realm for all of us. The second thing which we are currently working on is to also, since you guys know, so Spheron works on using the MetaMask and other wallet, which yeah, it is compatible with EVM and non-EVM chain as well. So which means we are going to be launching ourselves into various different chains, and wherever we go, you guys also go with us. Which means like we are going to be launching on Optimism. We are already live on Arbitrum. The Mainnet release is yet pending, which will get released in few weeks. And then we are going to be most of the EVM compatible chain out there within next 2 or 3 months max. So that is what our roadmap currently looks like around the Akash.
Awesome. Thank you. So, one thing that stands out about Spheron is your very robust ecosystem. How have you grown your ecosystem and how are you going to continue to do so?
So, so for us, we are developers first. So we kind of understand like how our developers think in terms of using any kind of product into this ecosystem. That is the first part. The second part being as a founder also, you guys might have seen me personally going into various events, talking to developers and attending the events and giving the either events and workshops, right? That basically creates more trust, even though it is a trustless ecosystem, which we call it. It is trustless on the level of in the business term, but ultimately we all are humans and we love to talk to real humans out there. And that is how we were able to make the community our ecosystem and the growth in a way in India itself. And we have been very vocal in India, right? So if you come to India and you talk about us, mostly most of the folks who are working out of India must be knowing us either directly or indirectly, because we have been going into the market, literally going into the market by like not just sitting on our laptops. We were literally going into the colleges, universities. We are literally going into different cities, different places, organizing various workshops, events, bringing that educational material in front of these developers, and people just started loving it, and this is how we were able to grow our ecosystem
Love
robust,
it.
which is today.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Love that. We're going to talk a little bit about your experience with Akash, but before we do, what should we look out for next from Spheron? Is there anything in the pipeline that you can give us a sneak peek of?
It's a marketplace which is going to be go live soon.
Awesome. So recently, our very own Alani Kuya had the pleasure of talking to the attendees of your recent event in Hyderabad, and you have another event coming up, actually. Well, that we'll also be participating in. So looking forward to that coming up soon. So tell us, how did you first hear about Akash?
Uh, how did I first hear? I don't remember it now because it's been a long time now. But I believe it was during my Gitcoin days. There was a hackathon which Akash has thrown in Gitcoin around 2020 or 2021. And I believe since then we have been following Akash closely. And during that point of time, only the Spheron came up to, and our goal was is to integrate Akash over the time, and we have been working around it. But there were a lot of it's a Web3 journey, so we have hit a lot of hurdles. We have hit a lot of we passed a lot of multiple cycles, and the integration got delayed. But ultimately, our aim was is to do that. So we are here. But yeah, in during my Gitcoin days, only we heard about Akash.
Oh, nice. It's always so fun to hear about that first moment everyone heard about Akash when we talk to our guests. Thanks for sharing. So, how has your experience with Akash been so far, and what are your plans from here?
So far, it is good. And our plan from here is to make sure Akash has been heavily utilized into our platform. People who are coming to Spheron, they should if they are looking for nodes, if they are looking for, and I believe after the private IP, which Greg was also talking about, is static IP. If once that comes in, I believe just imagine, right? So now even I have pointed a couple of things on a global platform also here in events. So when I pointed out one thing is like you don't own the RPC URLs. It is somebody else you owning it. What does that mean? It basically means like you just are being trapped into one thing, which is a centralized server, which is sitting on the top of decentralized network, right? So once that comes in, that will be a great hit for us because we want to work on it. But our overall intention is to make Akash and Spheron successful as much as possible in India, and then we are also expanding ourselves in Africa, African region, which I believe you guys have already noticed. So our expansion is going to look like this: from India to Africa, and then we might go to Vietnam and other places. And wherever we go, you guys are already there. So that is what our plan going forward, the Akash. And then also, we are not just expanding; we are also innovating. So, which means like there are a lot of innovation which will be done during that path, like marketplace is one, monitoring system second, and then there might be in future there might be other thing as well which will be coming up, which we have already planned out. So stay tuned for it.
Incredibly exciting. Thank you so much, Prashant. Guys, check out what Spheron is building and be sure to give them a follow. Prashant, stick around for the AMA at the end. If you are listening in, and you've gone ahead and requested to speak, we see you. We'll just go ahead and grant those requests during the AMA section because right now we have our second guest today, which is Overclock Labs' very own CFO, Cheng Wang. At Overclock, Cheng leads and guides Overclock's financial operations and strategy. Previously, he served as the CFO for Workshop, a high growth San Francisco gaming startup and a premier blockchain startup. Cheng spent over 8 years at premier financial institutions before founding and managing his own retail businesses in New York City, where we're calling you guys from actually today. So his experience includes extended tenures with Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and the Royal Bank of Scotland. Prior to his work as a CFO and entrepreneur, Cheng was a vice president at RBS focusing on debt and valuations. His financial expertise includes equity, debt valuation, derivative instruments, and portfolio management. So we are lucky to have him here today to tell us all about Akash's token release. Welcome, Cheng. How are you?
Thank you, Nadia, for the amazing introduction. In covering that makes me feel a lot older than I think I am. I'm doing great.
Awesome. All right, Cheng, we've had lots of questions regarding the latest Akash token release, so I'm just going to hand it right off to you so you can fill us in on all the details. Cheng, tell us more.
Certainly. Happy to be a part of this. It's awesome being a listener. but often coming in and sharing the stage with Greg and our panel guests, it's always a pleasure. In terms of our token release, this I think will be to everyone's. I'm not sure if everyone already knows, but the information is public. I believe we have it linked on our site finally at this point. It fell off at some point in time, but the originally published token release schedule is all out there, broken out into buckets and timing. And this particular release, it's going to be really our last big release, or relatively speaking. The subsequent ones will be a lot smaller, and it will be primarily allocated towards ecosystem wallets and things like that. And so even in this particular case, the vast majority of tokens that are being unlocked, goes into the category of community ecosystem funds, as well as the foundation, Decentralized Cloud Foundation, for those of you who don't know, in addition to Overclock Labs. So in terms of the total proportion of tokens unlocked that's going into the hands of investors, I think it's approximately 8 million tokens. Versus the total supply that is well over, in terms of total supply that is going to be released, that's going to be approximately 20 million, a little over that. And the majority of that goes towards the foundation wallets, the ecosystem wallets, marketing efforts, etc. So most of that is honestly not going to, I'm quite confident in saying it's not going to hit the market, because we control a lot of those multi-sigs on the Akash side of things. And then secondly, in terms of investors and such, one of the big reasons and kind of behind the scenes things we do when we go to events like this, in addition to kind of our daily operations, is to maintain good relationships and consistent relationships with our existing investors, right? To see what their sentiment is, what they're thinking in the markets. And quite frankly, I don't know if you guys are in the same boat, but I can anecdotally say, in terms of our comms with those guys and gals, in addition to myself and my own kind of sad little portfolio at this point in time, is hold on for dear life, right? At this point in time, evaluations across the board are depressed, right? Bitcoin's the kind of the golden child of the group, if you will, is even, cresting or troughing below 19, closer to 18 at this point in time, right? So it's really just about, I think, holding on, because if you don't need to, it's really just, I guess, sound portfolio management. If you don't need the cash at this point in time, or if you don't want to harvest losses or something like that, there's really no sense in selling. And it's quite, for those people who assume, investors will just sell or dump in the market, it's really economically not beneficial to them. And here's really why. For our investors who joined super early on, which is pretty much all of them, right? They had homogeneous lockup schedules. Everyone was executed same price, same time. And over the course of the 2 years where their tokens have been investing, they are deep in the money, extremely profitable. So based on their existing holdings, where their price was relative to where it is now, in addition to the inflation tokens they would have earned throughout that holding period, all of those firms, individuals, angels, etc., are all deep in the money from an kind of ROI perspective. So at this point in time, there's really kind of no incentive to sell an asset that is depressed, along with the entire kind of macro market that we see. So that's gives us a lot of confidence, right? Where we reach out, we say, hey, look, what's your sentiment? What are you feeling? Do you feel like selling? Investor A, investor B, investor C, and the resounding answers come back as, number one, we have no plans to sell. Number two, it'll be silly for us to sell at this point in time, right? In addition to that, they don't quite say as loudly, but they've also, done quite well all the way through from 2 years ago through today. So that's kind of the full background there. Again, I'll emphasize the main data points here are the vast majority of the token release here is going towards foundation or company wallets, right, and not going to go out into the wild, right? And in terms of what is our own economic imperative, as far as not dispersing or selling those tokens and further depressing the market, another source of potential FUD or contention that sometimes people on the internet do have is, well, guess what? The longest vesting period for any cohort within token release schedule is the team itself. So the vast majority of our tokens are still currently locked or subject to vesting. So it's locked on chain and will be unlocked in another tranche 6 months from now. However, our personal contracts with the company vests for over the course of 4 years. So you can expect another year and a half to 2 years where essentially the principals of the company, Nadia, Greg, myself, everyone employed by the company whose tokens are going to be locked up for that duration of time. So there's, that kind of us putting our faith and our money, if you will, where our mouth is. We're going to be the people holding on and building. So that's kind of where the kind of micro is with regards to our token unlock schedule and the release schedule. And in terms of the macro environment, just a bit of not financial advice, but just me reading the tea leaves a little bit. I do think that this week is a portent of things to come. Today, I believe, is our illustrious Fed Open Market Committee meeting. So we'll see what the Fed rate hike looks like. But in terms of what's out there now, I think there's a lot more headwinds than there are tailwinds, right? So people always focus on inflation. Yes, that's a cause of concern. The TLDR of it is rate hikes will continue to happen. And if rate hikes continue to happen, that's going to hurt the equity markets dramatically. And crypto markets for the last year or so are highly, highly correlated with equity markets, which they weren't in the last cycle, good for good and bad. And so if equities are hurt, crypto will be obviously drawn down. And in terms of have we seen the bottom yet in equities? No one can tell, but just my 2 cents is we haven't. And I think look forward towards Q4 and Q1 of next year as probably where bottom will emerge. Reasons being corporate earnings, right? We've seen stock prices hit, and we've seen layoffs, and we've seen job cuts across the board. But I think the biggest tell will be when corporate earnings show and they disappoint in Q4, and when they again disappoint in Q1. Right. So when that news comes out, that's when the companies and projects and teams will be, I think, see kind of the most blood in the water at that particular moment in time. Not to paint a bleak picture at all. These are opportunities to really hold fast, hold steady, continue to manage your portfolio with a steady hand. Right. Don't panic if you don't need to. Don't exit. But take it with a grain of salt. Again, not financial advice. Just me kind of blabbering about with what we see here. What does that mean for Akash Network? Ultimately, we're heads down. We're continuing to build. We have our IP marketplace or IP leases releasing soon. And as Greg alluded to earlier, we have our head of product and Neil presenting something really cool coming up. And tomorrow, actually, he'll be presenting at 12 noon Eastern. So please tune in for that. If you have any questions as far as how to access it, please do give us a tweet, and then we'll link you to the appropriate place for that.
Thanks so
Awesome.
much, Cheng. So what does it all mean, right? So, I mean, of course, the markets are very shaky. We are in a deep bear market. Is the bottom here? Probably not. But we don't know, right? We don't know what the Fed keeps printing, attacking with increasing interest rates. There's a lot of assault happening on the market. So what does it mean, like in terms of do I buy tokens? Do I don't buy tokens? For me, this is not financial advice, and I'm no financial advisor, but for me, it really comes down to putting my portfolio on autopilot and heads down. So focusing on things that matter, right? There's nothing you can do in this market in terms of trying to actively, like manage my portfolio or yields or anything. So I would focus, like for me, I keep buying Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin at, I don't know, $54,000, and I bought Bitcoin at 18,000, right? So I mean, it's like there's something called dollar cost averaging in we do, right? So it is very, very hard to time the market. So instead of timing the market, we average our cost of entry by purchasing when we see good opportunities, right? So I can't tell you what token to buy and what not to buy, but the approach I would normally take instead of panicking and instead of like keeping your eyes every day on the market is to look for opportunity, if possible. That it's again like if you can, that is right, to dollar cost average into your tokens that you've been eyeing, right? So yeah, so you're going to see quite a lot of bumpy roads, and this is common. At the same time, we're very heads down. Like we're super, super excited to finally show you something that we've been working on tomorrow at Mainnet. and Mainnet 4. I mean, not to confuse with the Mainnet conference, but Akash Mainnet 4, which is the fourth release of our production version, will contain IP releases. You just heard Prashant talk about how excited they are about this new feature. And you see Prashant and Spheron and ecosystem partners like the platform clients that will eventually replace the Akash core team as the primary contributors to growth, and it's already starting to happen. So Spheron is focusing on bringing on ecosystems like Polygon, countries like Africa onto the Akash ecosystem, right? The core team, Labs team, with us focusing on building the features and teams like Spheron are focusing on expanding this reach beyond the core team's reach. And this is exactly the kind of adoption we want to see. And last week we saw how DoD organically started adopting Akash. It's nobody in the core team, nobody in the Overclock Labs team had to do anything with their engagement. It was Montrealers who happens to be a big ecosystem partner, organic partner of Akash, right? And a lot of these partners come because we throw a hackathon or we throw a developer event or we throw something that entices builders, right? So this level of organic involvement is exactly what we want to see, and we're going to continue seeing that over the next few months and few years, right? And as a reminder, Akash, if you go to our ecosystem page, you'll see 50 to little over 50 projects, most of them in Cosmos ecosystem, running on Akash, right? So I think safely we can say about 20% of Cosmos ecosystem uses Akash right now. Over the next 12 months, we want to be 80%, right? And the plan really is to focus on our immediate ecosystem, which is Cosmos, so that we can nail the user experience and we can nail the retention and slowly expand to other ecosystems as we keep adding features like IP address leasing and persistent storage and whatnot. And you'll slowly start seeing quite a lot of Ethereum nodes. And as we all know, Ethereum merge happened last week, which is a phenomenal feat of achievement. I mean, it's a wow moment for such a big chain to move from proof of work to proof of stake. And that validates our thesis. Akash was an early proof of stake network. We started working on proof of stake design since 2017, right? So we made a lot of bets with a lot of really good tech. We made a bet on Cosmos really early. We made a bet on proof of stake very early, and we made a bet on Kubernetes really really early. So all these bets are starting to show fruition, and we're starting to see results. And sooner than the kind of engagement that we had, is organic engagement, is soon going to be inevitable and starting to show the results right now. So super super excited for the next coming weeks and months and years to build.
Awesome. Before we open up our AMA, just one more time, guys, a reminder that nothing in this episode is financial advice. As always, do your own research. With that, let's open up the AMA with questions for Greg and our guests, Prashant and Cheng. If you would like to ask your question live, go ahead and request to speak. We'll bring you up and let you know when it's your turn. Just hang out on mute. We have we have two Telegram community member questions. Telegram community member Some Guy asks, I know that Akash is mostly concentrated on DEXs, but is there any chance that the team is planning to improve the volume and liquidity on centralized exchanges? Sometimes it's hard to trade AKT.
Yeah, I'll take that one head on. And so in terms of where we're listed, we're actually listed on some really strong exchanges, right? So Kraken is being probably the top tier exchange we're on, KuCoin being another, but obviously in this index, probably our deepest order book as far as centralized exchanges go. And for us, we are always trying to really find additional exchange venues that really are interesting, right? So at this point in time, because of the exchange venues we're already on, there are only a small handful of, probably less than a small handful of exchanges that would really pique our interest that I'll shy away from naming at this particular moment in time. But I'm sure you guys can guess within a guess or two who these exchanges are. I definitely do want to. This is something that I think the community has asked quite often, and we'll probably memorialize it into some sort of an FAQ or blog post. Is the process of getting listed on exchanges is very arduous. and difficult. They have their own economic considerations, they have their own pipelines and things to weigh, right? So we can dive into those at another point in time. Suffice it to say that simply by virtue of listing is not going to necessarily help drive volumes, right? Especially in this particular market, in the down market. Like, what gets people ultimately excited is going to be everything that Prashant and Greg covered. That's going to be momentum building. That's number one, first and foremost. Without a highly functional product, without great user adoption, platform adoption, and ecosystem adoption, the kind of the buzz and fervor around the token as well as the project isn't going to be nearly as strong. And so that's the first biggest thing we're focusing on, and we will always be heads down in that respect. The other area that we're really, I think, turning the corner on and figuring out is ultimately, why should the average person or the normal person who isn't a developer, let's face it, most of us aren't highly technically literate like the Greg and Prashants of the world. So, outside of working for, Overclock Labs or AWS or GCP or other decentralized compute networks out there, what is the meaning behind Akash? Like, why should I care, right? And ultimately, the thing that we need to convey, and we will start doing so in no kind of soft terms, is going to be the kind of trying to mitigate or abolish this, what we're internally calling kind of the internet tax, right? For those of you who don't know, A16Z published an analysis a little while ago, very short while ago actually, that 50% of all spend of their profit margins goes to centralized cloud providers, right? And guess who's the biggest amongst them all? Amazon's AWS. And so there's a reason why the things you use, from Spotify to online banking to your Netflix to, shopping to DoorDash, or however you use the internet, every single dollar you spend on it, you can pretty surely bet that, around 50 cents of it doesn't necessarily go to the pocket of the counterparty you are using, whose service you're using. It goes to the AWSs of the world, GCPs of the world, etc. So that's ultimately the meaning behind us building what we're building, right? First and foremost, that's why it matters to every single end user. If you're a resident of the internet, this will affect you, first and foremost. And finally, it's really about, I think, sovereignty, one of our core values. If you look at what happened in the terms of service change with Hetzner, right, with one stroke of the pen, if you will, they kind of blanket banned all crypto-related activities, and good, bad, or otherwise, right? So it's really disheartening. And so to have extremely concentrated kind of locus of power within these companies isn't good for the internet. And the internet was founded on the backbone of sovereignty, right? And people just kind of free peer. The essence of it was peer-to-peer to start. So that's really the core of it and what we're driving towards. So really, to summarize here, we're focusing on liquidity, but in order to the table stakes, if you will, to enable liquidity to happen is fervor and enthusiasm around the project. And there's nothing better to stoke that than continuous progress. And of course, speaking to that progress in a way that is meaningful and also lands in a kind of a compelling way emotionally for everybody, right? So that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. So also from Telegram, Arson asks, how hard will the last unlock hit the price? Do we need to expect something, or is the team taking care of it all?
In terms of how hard it will hit, no one knows. I wish I knew in the future. But as I stated before, all of the data points, anecdotally and otherwise, I think are in the favor, right? It's where those who have tokens currently vesting and will be unlocking, they have no real economic imperative to sell at this point in time. As far as those who we spoke to, those who are investors, of course, and those who are close in the ecosystem. And just generally, people are very kind of hodl, right? Diamond hands portfolio at this moment in time. If they don't need liquidity, they don't need to harvest losses for tax purposes, etc. Rebalancing portfolios, there's really no sense to sell any sort of significant tranche of tokens, right? So that's number one. Number two is in terms of the relative release. So this release, relative to every single subsequent one, is the smallest in terms of the relative supply that's going to be unlocked, right? So each kind of token release is going to be smaller than the last, and this one substantially, again, smaller than the one previous. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is that most of the tokens that are being released is going into the foundation, Overclock Labs, Akash Network, ecosystem grants, etc. Right. So those types of things don't really hit the open market, or not really, just don't hit the open market. And again, where's the imperative for us or the token, the project, et cetera, for like not, letting those tokens hit the open market? There's really no point, right? Especially in this depressed valuation, we're going to hold on to that and design, I think, activities around that'll be accretive to the network. So, for example, it's so early on, but we're kicking around the potential for launching provider incentives, right, to get more supply onto the network. We currently have, I think, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, approximately 50 or so regions represented, whereas Amazon has, I think, less than 20, right? Just to kind of let you know what decentralization looks like, even in its infancy. So provider incentives being one, further ecosystem grants, really growing opportunities and projects, right? Like the one Prashant has built himself, right? So, Multi audits, for example, CloudMost, those all, as well as Praetor, those all came out of the Akash ecosystem, kind of the accelerator program. So those are our kind of primary areas of focus at this moment in time. And of course, ultimately driving further demand and usage, right? From DoD to DeFi, right? Where those are kind of our focuses now in terms of usage of the token.
Awesome. Thank you. Those were our questions from Telegram. Greg, do you have any over on Twitter?
I don't.
Okay. Well, with that, if nobody here has any questions, we will go ahead and wrap up. Any questions from anybody here in the room? All right.
I do want to quickly say, if I may, Nadia, apologies
Yes,
for
of course.
barging in there, is please do, if you are interested in participating in a deeper, more meaningful way with Akash, if you aren't already, if you're technical, if you're not, if you're just, extremely interested and you want to find out how you can kind of, if you will, join the Akashians and really help proliferate the network, learn more, help others learn more, please do reach out to us, reach out to Nadia, reach out to Adam Wozni, who's our global community manager here. He runs an insiders program as well as a Vanguard program. So those are, kind of the MVPs of our ecosystem and our community, well, not ecosystem, but our community, who helps with everything from documentation to answering questions to helping dispel, fake news and defend token and everything in between, right? In terms of, well, not defend token, but defend kind of our facts, if you will, right? And presenting the right facts and dispelling misinformation. So if you want to learn any more about that, please do reach out to us and reach out to Adam. There you go with the heart. Reach out to Adam, reach out to Nadia, and we'll get you baked into the community.
Thanks so much to Greg, Prashant, and Cheng for joining us on Spaces today. And a huge thank you to all of you guys for joining today or listening to this later. Before we get together next time, Prashant, where can everyone go to learn more about Spheron and the Spheron and Akash partnership?
I believe it is very straight. So we are updating our landing page. Once that is done, then everything will be on Spheron.network. But if you need, since Akash integration is still into alpha stage with us, join us on our Discord. And to join that, you can again go to Spheron.network, click on contact, and go to join Discord button, and it will take you to our Discord server. And we'll be more than happy to support you if you have any queries that come around Akash. From using via, if you're using Spheron for deploying it, we'll be more than happy to support you there.
Thanks, Prashant. Everyone go check out Spheron. Guys, let's keep in touch between spaces right now. Go sign up for our newsletter at akash.network/connect. While you're there, check out the Akash blog. Head over to Telegram tomorrow, Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, where Spheron will return for an AMA with a 300 AKT prize pool for the best questions. If you're going to be at Cosmoverse next week, sign up for the Akash workshop on Tuesday, September 27th. Check out the Eventbrite link over in our Twitter. Tuesday, hop on over to Discord for quizzes at 8 a.m. Pacific with 200 AKT in rewards and 5 winners. Join us next week, Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific for our next Akash Weekly Spaces with Greg. Tap that set reminder button as soon as we post it. And of course, try Akash out for yourselves, guys. Go ahead and deploy Akash. To do so, check out our documentation at docs.akash.network. For a bit more support during your deployment, join our Discord group. Director of Technical Support, Scott Carruthers, will be there. Our insiders will be there. You could also watch Alani Kuye, Technical Program Manager, walk you through your first deployment on YouTube. Check out akash.network/community and find out how you guys can spread the word about Akash and help this project grow by becoming an Akash insider. Thank you guys so much for joining today's event. Thanks again to Greg, Prashant, and Cheng for spending time with us. See you guys next Wednesday with Greg at 8 a.m. Pacific.
Thank you.